6 games? We're talking 6 games? Really? 6 games. Willie Epting Jr. Ballers Report podcast right here, powered by the Shakeback Media Group. Once again, checking in live, loud, and in color, baby. 6 games in case you haven't heard or have been somewhere hiding under a rock or social. No, we're not doing social distancing anymore. But anyway, Deshaun Watson, quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, has received the word that his 6-game suspension will be just that, 6 games. So what does this mean? Well, we're going to get into that here in just a minute. We're going to talk about the passing of a legend, and we're also going to talk about the legacy of Kevin Durant versus the legacy of Steph Curry. And we're also going to talk a little bit of baseball because the Major League Baseball trade deadline did it go down in a major way on Tuesday. We're going to get to that here in just a minute as well. But before we get started, you already know what we got to do. You already know what it is. So let's go get it. Here we go.
Right about now, you're about to be possessed by the sounds.
Yeah, I know what it is. You little suckers get to talking, grabbing out walking, strapped to the pong of the jaws, and smacking they sleep with the coffins. And they getting greedy like saying, give me all.
Yes, sirree, buddy. You already know what it is when you hear that music, man. It is a special edition, not really a special edition, but it's a another edition, rather, of the Ballers Report podcast, courtesy of the Shakeback Media Group. Thank you guys out there for checking us out on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram for this show at the Shakeback Media Group on YouTube, at Shakeback Media Group on Twitter, and on Instagram, also as Shakeback Media Group. So the 6-game suspension handed down by one former judge of whatever she was a judge of, Sue L. Roberts, has been finalized. Deshaun Watson, 6-game suspension after a year and a half of all of everything that has gone past or gone on. So it means various things, really. And this is what I want to ask you guys out there that are checking this out live here on all of the streaming platforms, and ultimately will hear this on either iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Pocket Cast, or wherever you get your favorite, or wherever you get your podcast listening pleasure. I want to ask a couple questions. The NFL is likely going to appeal this. Now, granted, this whole process that is in place in terms of the handing down of this punishment by Sue Roberts, this was collectively bargained by the NFLPA, the NFL Players Association, and the league. So essentially, the league has said, you know what? We're going to step out of this. We're going to allow a third party to rule on this. And whatever they rule, then we would decide from there. Now, again, collectively bargained means it's in the collective bargaining agreement. That means, of course, that the players and the league had to agree on it. So if the players get in trouble because they wanted to take the power away from Roger Goodell, but essentially that has not happened, simply because the third party ruler or arbitrator or judge or whatever you want to call it that's making the decision, it's not binding if the NFL decides to appeal. And if the NFL decides to appeal, guess who it is in her? Guess who gets to hear it? The appeal. Guess who's in charge of the appeals process? Guess who is in charge of anything or any decision that is made after the appeals process, which of course would be binding. What does that mean? That means that once the decision is made, it is final. That falls right back into the lap of one Roger Goodell or whomever he appoints. So it's like, now they got the power back. Here, you take it, but I'm going to take it back. So let's talk about the specifics. This lady, this judge, all due respect, she used words like egregious and predatory. When you hear words like that, you're thinking that it is something a little bit more extraneous than what we actually see, right? That's what I'm thinking. That is what my thought process is. That is how my mind thinks when it comes to vocabulary and hearing words like this. So let's talk about the hypocrisy of the NFL because I don't want to really, first of all, the ladies that were involved in this, the ladies that brought these allegations against Deshaun Watson, 24 of the 25 cases have been settled, with the last 3 or 4 being settled before the actual ruling came out by Sue Roberts. Okay. Say what you will about whether you think they're faking or the Texans had this all set up or whatever the case may be. And we're gonna that's a whole nother show for a whole different day if the Texans actually had something to do with this. But those ladies, those females, those women, if any of this is true, that it was alleged sexual misconduct or whatever you want to call it, we hope and pray that you are able to find some peace in whatever case or however much you settle for. That's first and foremost. But going back to Deshaun Watson, I don't know Deshaun Watson. I've never talked to him. Any of those things. By all accounts, from people at his school at Clemson when he was breaking records there and being All-American and running up, being runner-up for the Heisman Trophy and all that, have all said that by all accounts, this dude is a good dude. And he is emphatically screamed from the mountaintops that he is innocent. Okay. It's a little bit of an issue for me when you have 25 people saying the same thing. And then it's a little bit more of an issue for me when you're settling these cases out of court. When you have preached from the mountaintops that you didn't do any of this. I'm not here to say whether you did or you didn't, Deshaun. I kind of understand a little bit why you would settle these cases because you really are ready to get on and get on past this. But there's some contrition that needs to be exhibited or displayed, in my opinion, because how innocent are you really if you are paying? And even with that, there was money that was offered before all of this stuff even came out. So to me, those are things that, like, when they say there's smoke, there's fire. There may not be a big fire. There might not be a raging wildfire that we've seen in California. Lord help those people out there. It may not be the fires of hell that we've seen illustrated in different genres or different books or what have you. But there's some fire somewhere. And just because 2 grand juries down in Harris County in Houston, Texas, did not find enough evidence to convict or indict him criminally, doesn't necessarily mean that there was not anything wrong. Okay. And the fact of the matter is, we will never know. There's 3 sides to every story. There's what he said, there's what she said, and then there's what really happened. We will never know what really happened. That's just what that is. But for the Cleveland Browns, they have some culpability in this as well, because they're telling everybody, or they had told everybody, that they had done their due diligence when investigating this before they actually signed Deshaun Watson. But they didn't talk to all of the women. They only talked to maybe a handful of them. Okay. I had a problem with that. And again, I am not here to disparage Deshaun Watson as a man, as a person. I don't know what his faith is, any of that. I'm simply opining things that are not sitting that great with me. And I'm going to get to the NFL side of it here in just a second. But if the NFL and the NFLPA have collectively agreed that this would be the process, why would the NFL appeal it? I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to tell you what I think. In the climate that we are in, where we have seen all of these amazing and awesome ladies across the landscape, not just in this country, but around the world, doing so many firsts. I mean, like things that have never been done by not just black women, it's not white women, but all women. And we're in favor of that. We love that. We empower that here at the Shakeback Media Group. But why would the NFL appeal a decision by a judge whom they actually gave the authority over to rectify or to settle matters like this? Because there are women coaches in the NFL. There are women officials in the NFL. There are women front office people in the NFL. There are, of course, women cheerleaders in the NFL. There are women fans of the NFL. And of course, the moms are women of all of the players of the NFL. So in the climate that we are in, with the things that we have seen the NFL sometimes cover up, i.e., Daniel Snyder, i.e., Robert Kraft, and so many other incidences, i.e., Stephen Ross. Yeah, they got fined. The Miami Dolphins owner, yeah, he got fined of $1.5 million, which is nothing to him, and they lost draft picks. Okay, but anyway, in the climate that we are in, ladies and gentlemen, the NFL is juggling. They are trying to determine the balancing act that is going to have them coming out looking as good in this really ungoodable situation that you could come out in. Seriously, what are you going to do? You got some people saying that the 6 games that he got suspended is not enough. You have some people that are saying that the 6 games that he got suspended is too much. Me personally, I was shocked that it was less than 10. I was shocked. And I'm not shocked that the NFL is going to appeal. But the NFL is going to have to walk a tightrope unlike any that they've done so before. Because they're going to look very much like a two-faced organization / multi-billion-dollar industry or company by saying, you know what, we gave the authority for the decision to be made over here, but we understand the climate that we're in over here. We don't really necessarily agree with the decision from the person that we said that it was okay to make the decision. So now we're going to appeal it because by many people's estimations, the league was pushing for a year-long suspension, 12 games, 10 games, 8 games. So where's the happy medium? Because you got groups that are not affiliated with the NFL, but there are very powerful groups. There was a Cleveland Rape Crisis Center in Ohio that came out with a report with a statement earlier today, and I wish I had, but I don't. But essentially, they said that the 6 games is really a disgrace. And on top of that, Deshaun was not fined. How do you not get fined? Okay, remember, Deshaun Watson just signed a $238 million contract extension with the Browns. That's all guaranteed. Number one. Number two, Deshaun Watson did not play not one single down in the NFL last year, but he collected all of his salary. How do you not get fined for this? The shield is compromised. And that's what I'm talking about as I move over to the hypocrisy of the NFL. So you mean to tell me, National Football League, that these sexual assault allegations is a better scenario than a person gambling not on his team, but on other teams? Calvin Ridley, wide receiver from the Atlanta Falcons, he got a season-long suspension. The kid that played for the Arizona Cardinals, he was a cornerback or a defensive back, rather. He gambled, but he may have gambled on, I think he actually gambled on the Arizona Cardinals, which was a little bit more egregious than what Calvin Ridley did. But is that more egregious than what Deshaun Watson is to alleged to have done? Is Robert Kraft, what he did in Florida, was that more egregious than what Deshaun Watson was alleged to have done? And then we look at history. Ezekiel Elliott, he got 6 games for, what was it? I want to say it was maybe 2 or 3 women. Ben Roethlisberger, who came out on Tuesday and said He needs to be banned for life. He being Deshaun Watson needs to be banned for life. You cannot have a sexual predator as the face of your league. That's kind of ironic because Ben Roethlisberger is the very case that a lot of us are pointing to, because he did essentially the same thing years ago and got 6 games and it was reduced down to 4, if I'm not mistaken. But his had an element of violence, if I remember correctly. Deshaun's thing was just, I shouldn't say it was just, but his was without violence. He's saying that it was all consensual. Okay, well, if it was consensual, why are you? I would have fought it, but fighting it would have ultimately delayed the inevitable, because the NFL shield, is not about whether or not somebody broke the law. It's about whether they placed a stain on the brand, if they are compromising the bottom line. So here's a series of questions that I have. Deshaun Watson, yes, while it was a stain on the NFL, was it worse or better than what Colin Kaepernick did by doing his constitutional right to take a knee or to silently protest police brutality and racial and social injustice in this country? Was it worse than that? I think that it was. Colin Kaepernick cannot get in a job in the NFL because Donald Trump whipped up his base in a frenzy and said that he was disrespecting the flag, or that the NFL players that were doing that were disrespecting the flag, and it had nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with the flag. So does that mean that a piece of cloth, a piece of fabric, is more important than these women, than Deshaun Watson, than Colin Kaepernick himself? Explain that to me. Okay, I'll give you another one. Is Stephen Ross, what he did, is it more or less egregious than what Deshaun Watson has been alleged to have done? Yeah, Stephen Ross is said to have compromised the game. And of course, I'm talking about when he offered supposedly then head coach Brian Flores 100 racks per loss. And Brian Flores said, nah, man, that ain't even me. I'm not doing that. Is that more or less egregious? I think that's less egregious than what Deshaun did. But he got fined $1.5 million. Okay, I have another one for you. Tom Brady was suspended for deflating balls and got what, a 4-game suspension or 6 games, and it was reduced to 4. And the Patriots, I think, went 3-1 while he was out. Is that more or less egregious than what Deshaun was alleged to have done? I don't think so. I think it was way less. So my question is this, NFL. Oh, I got one more. Because as we all know, the pandemic is still ongoing. And it was ongoing last year, even though we had relatively back to normal activities and events and all such. Was it less or more egregious when quarterback from the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, said or led us to believe that he was vaccinated, rolling around the facilities and after games and at practice while not wearing a mask, suspending him, getting him suspended for 1 game? Oh, by the way, he did catch COVID, so he was out 2 games. Which one is more or less egregious? I think that because, I mean, what Aaron Rodgers did could have potentially cost people their lives. So to me, that could be an apples to oranges comparison, but it's still very egregious. But he only got 1 game, and it was without pay, if I'm not mistaken. So what I'm saying is that this is not a bashment, if that's not a word it is now. This is not a bashment of Deshaun Watson. Like I said, I don't know the dude. I actually am a fan of his play. I'm not a Cleveland Browns fan, although I will root for them from time to time. This is about the NFL and what they are going to do. They are and they're concerned seemingly more for the bottom line while trying to appease so many groups. If you really want to clean this stuff up, if you really want to clean all of these things up that are going on in the NFL, such as this, be open about Daniel Snyder, be open about Robert Kraft, be open about Colin Kaepernick, be open about the kid from oh yeah, of course, Calvin Ridley, and then be consistent and make the punishment fit the crime, so to speak. Because to me, a person who's gambling, yeah, it's stupid. That doesn't really bring a stain to the shield as much as what Deshaun Watson is alleging. That's what I'm saying. This doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm not saying Deshaun should get a full season. What I'm saying is you have to act in accordance that is going to be is going to be beneficial, or at least make it look like you care about a fan base or a group that you're trying to market towards, which is women. Because the thing that makes this so much more different today than it did when Ben Roethlisberger allegedly did what he did is that you have all of these women now that are directly in the game of football, whether they are an official, whether they are a coach, scout, front office person, cheerleader, whatever, working on the business side of it. We've seen it. It's come out. The culture in some of these franchises is just horrific, as we've seen with Washington. So you can't say, I don't think we can say that, well, Ben Roethlisberger, he only had one person, and he got 6 games and it was reduced to 4, and that was back in 2000 and whatever. That was over 10 years ago. Things have changed. This is not the same. This is not the same world as it was then. This is not the same league as it was then. It's just not. So, like Patrice always tell me, dude, read the room. In this case, NFL, read the room. Cleveland Browns, read the room. Deshaun Watson, read the room. And then, okay, let's talk about Michael Vick. Michael Vick went to jail for a federal offense on dog fighting and dog trafficking, or whatever the charge was. That dude went to prison. He got a reprieve. And he started doing things in relation to dogs and animals and pets and all that to ingratiate himself back into the good graces of those said markets, or those said entities, or those said groups of people. At some point, Deshaun Watson is going to have to do the same thing. He's going to have to. He's going to have to. Because this is going to follow him for the rest of his career and or his life. And he may or may not care. This dude got $238 million guaranteed in his pocket. And he ain't done making money yet. Because he's relatively young. What, he's only 26, 25? And he hasn't played. There's been a whole year where he didn't play. So his body is fresher than it's ever been. For all the women out there that are really grieving about this, and even men for that matter, for anybody out there that's grieving over this matter, it's a no-win situation all the way around. I think that and I'm not saying that the NFL did or didn't do this, but to me, it would have seemed appropriate to at least consult with some sexual assault type groups or what have you, to maybe gauge on what they can possibly lend to would be an appropriate discipline for Deshaun Watson. Because I'm going to tell you this, whether you think he did it, or whether you think he didn't do it, and whether he did do it, or whether he didn't do it, this is here. We're here. This is where we are. And there's nothing wrong with seeking counsel, because I'm going to tell you this right now. Before Colin Kaepernick took a knee as a private display of a constitutional right to protest, he discussed it with members of the military first. And they told him it would be more respectful for you to take one knee rather than sit down while the national anthem is playing. And that is what he did. And ever since he did that, he has not been able to get another job. But Michael Vick is going to jail. Deshaun Watson has alleged to do all these things. Ben Roethlisberger did what he allegedly did. Stephen Ross did what he did. Daniel Snyder is accused of doing what he doing. But they all still had their livelihood affiliated with football, whether it was an owner, a coach, or a player. They all got a reprieve, but Colin Kaepernick did not. You tell me that this is right. That is the hypocrisy of the NFL. Okay, I'm done with that. NFL, the season is right around the corner. Of course, we're deep into training camp. Tim Patrick of the Denver Broncos went down with a torn ACL on Tuesday. That's going to really put a crimp in their plans. Also, for the Dallas Cowboys, they're really thin already in their wide receiver room. Amari Cooper, yeah, he's in Cleveland. Michael Gallup, he's out probably until October. Noah Brown, he's there. Cedric Wilson, he's in Miami. And they have CeeDee Lamb and then James Washington, the receiver they got, or they signed in a free agent deal with from Pittsburgh, James Washington, former Oklahoma State Cowboy. I do believe he won the Biletnikoff Award when he was there too. Is out for the next 10 weeks with a fractured foot. Yeah. And for all you Cowboy fans out there that are continue to say that we're going to the Super Bowl, dude, y'all might not even make the playoffs. Because what Philadelphia has over there is other than the quarterback and maybe the running back room. But other than those two pieces, Philly has a better roster from top to bottom. Defense, all three levels. Special teams, yeah, they got that too. And the Cowboys have too many questions along the offensive line, and now they have a whole bunch more questions in their wide receiver room. Yeah, okay, whatever. Devontae Adams, Derek Carr putting on a show in Vegas during training camp. I've seen some clips of that. Also, how about our boy Jalen Guyton? What up, Brandy? Out there in LA with the Chargers. He's putting on a show out there as well. Mac Jones, who? Yeah, they say Mac Jones is spinning it and spinning it better than he ever did at any point last season. And then Justin Fields. Boy, I heard some things about him today out of Chicago Bears camp. He overthrowing folks. He throwing pick sixes, the whole nine. The Bears, yeah, they're going to be like Cubs this year, in my opinion, because they're just not very good. And I don't know if Justin Fields is really going to be that guy. For that to happen, man, they better get some pieces around him. They better fix that offensive line in a hurry. Okay, let's move over to some baseball real quick because the trade deadline has come and gone. The big one, of course, Juan Soto is now in San Diego as he is going to be playing with the Padres in a deal that sent so many players from San Diego over to the Nationals. Also going to the Padres is Josh Bell from the Nationals. So now the Padres traded for Josh Hader. They actually exchanged closers with the Milwaukee Brewers on Monday. So Josh Hader, who leads the league in saves, is now in Southern California. They get Josh Bell. They get Juan Soto. And Soto still has, I think, 2 years left on his deal. So now the Padres hashtag time to shine has thrusted themselves right in the mix in terms of being a World Series contender out of the National League. And this is a very different story from what we saw out of them last year. When everybody thought, myself included, thought that Trey Turner and Max Scherzer were going from the Washington Nationals to the Padres. Here come the Dodgers, the West Coast version of the evil empire, as they swooped in and plucked those two dudes. And after that, the Padres were never heard from again. They just went down, 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 and ultimately they were out, and they ended up firing their manager, Jason Tingley, I think his last name is. But they ended up firing him, and now they have, of course, Bob Melvin, who came down from the Oakland A's. Now, the Padres, particularly Bob Melvin, has something to prove. Bob Melvin has something to prove simply because of this reason right here. He has had just as good, if not better, teams in Oakland for the past however long he's been there. The A's have won division championships. The A's have secured wild card spots, but the A's only got out of the first round once. If I'm remembering correctly, the A's under Bob Melvin got out of the first round one time, and that was in the 60-game season 2 years ago during the pandemic, and they barely beat Chicago, and then lost to the Houston Astros in the ALDS, who, by the way, had a losing record that year. and then went on to the World Series. Can you believe that? So, yeah. Anyway, so that's where that is as far as the Padres go. They have thrusted themselves right there into the mix for a World Series berth. And, the Dodgers that's north of them, they did get Joey Gallo from the Yankees. I think that was kind of their backup plan because they were in the mix for Juan Soto as well. The St. Louis Cardinals, they get some much needed rotation help by getting Jordan Montgomery from the New York Yankees. And speaking of the Yankees, they just continue to do what they do. They did trade, like I said, they trade Gallo to the Dodgers, but they also picked up Lou Trevino from the Oakland A's along with Frankie Montas. So that's a reliever and a starter that they needed in that pitching rotation and that pitching in that bullpen. So now what do you have in Yankee land? You have the MVP, Aaron Judge. You have baseball does not have a most improved player award, but if they did, how could you not give it to Vino? How could you not give it to Trevi? Trevi went deep twice Monday. He went deep twice. I think that may be the first time in his career that he is dinged 2 times in the same game. One was a left field shot. One was an opposite field shot. I'm so happy for that dude. It ain't even funny. It's not even funny. Then the Braves, they picked up some help as well. They're chasing the Mets. And speaking of the Mets, they didn't make any deals. They didn't make any trades, but they got better by addition without having to subtract. Because on Tuesday, Jacob deGrom took the bump and hit 102 on the gun, according to my boy Mike Martinez. And look, this is now August. The Mets have not been in this position this late in the season for quite some time. And they got arguably their best player back. And they have all their horses healthy. That's amazing. So Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Starling Marte, all you guys out there, Francisco Lindor, who's having a monster year, could be in the conversation for MVP. Yeah, they're doing it. And there were a lot of other great trades too in Major League Baseball. Tune into the hashtag Brothers of Baseball show. This past episode, you can hear it on the Big Game Christian Sports Network. 12s and 6s, 1s and 7s, BGCSN 1 and BGCSN 2 all around the clock at the 12 and the 1 and the 6 and the 7 for the rest of the week. So we dive in a little bit more about the trade. Mike actually appeared on the show with me there. So yeah, it's a season like no other in the major leagues because of number one, the excitement, and we're now in the stretch run. Okay. We got 2 months left to go in the season, essentially 2 full months left to go. And those races for those final newly added wild card spots, they are going to be on fire. Okay. Before I get out of here, I want to talk a little bit about something I saw on Undisputed with Shannon Sharp and dang, what's the other dude's name? I can't think of the dude's name. Skip, not Skip Cheatham. But yeah, they were talking about Kevin Durant. And I really believe that I don't think Shannon Sharp is a Kevin Durant fan at all, because he went off while giving Steph Curry his flowers. Skip Bayless. That's what Skip Bayless. While giving Steph Curry his flowers, man, he gave Kevin Durant his flowers too. But he gave Kevin Durant his flowers while, like, he was saying he's dead, basically, but a dead man walking in terms of his legacy. Check this out right here, man. This is pretty dope.
Stephen Curry saved Kevin Durant's legacy. Because when he left, what legacy he got in Brooklyn? I want you to tell me, what did he build in Brooklyn? Steph Curry went along and got him an MVP, a finals MVP, won a title. He got 2 titles. Now, they said moving forward, the trophy's going to have the winning team's name on it. Steph Curry got a lot of firsts this year. He got the first Kobe Bryant MVP award, All-Star Game MVP award. He got the first Magic Johnson Western Conference Finals MVP. And he got the Finals MVP. And the team, the Warriors, gonna have their name written on the trophy like the Stanley Cup does. Can Kevin Durant say he got a trophy, a team award, without Steph Curry, without Wardell Stephen Curry name on it? He cannot say that.
I mean, those are all facts, ladies and gentlemen, all facts, very much so. And I didn't even think about the first ever Kobe Bryant award for being MVP of the All-Star game, and then the Magic Johnson award for being the Western Conference Final MVP. I mean, he basically, the only thing he didn't win, of course, is the MVP, and that was Nikola Jokic. But everything else, I think he was first team All-NBA as well, if I'm not mistaken. So All-Star game MVP, Western Conference Finals MVP, Finals MVP, and en route to his fourth championship as a player on the Warriors. And what has Kevin Durant shown us? He has shown us the ability to quit when things get rough, or he has shown us the ability to quit when things don't go his way. And to me, that those two championships that he got, yeah, he did win Finals MVP both times. But I'm going to tell you something right now. The Warriors have shown Kevin Durant and the world and basketball historians and even basketball traditionalists, to some degree, myself, that they could win before. They won before Kevin Durant got there. They won while Kevin Durant was there. And then they won after he was gone. So let the debate begin. Where does Kevin Durant rank as amongst the all-time or the greatest? We'll just say this, because he's an all-time great player. He's one of the best players I've ever seen. But will what we have seen, or really not seen, from Kevin Durant, will that knock his legacy down a few notches? Well, time will tell. And speaking of telling, that's it for me, man. I'm out. Thank you for you guys out there for checking me out here on the Ballers Report podcast, courtesy of the Shakeback Media Group. Man, y'all take care of each other. Y'all hug each other. Y'all love each other. And we'll holler at y'all again real soon. Peace. We out.